Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we'll be doing yet another update for patch 8.3. Blizzard decided to add a couple updates to the patch with this Tuesday reset. So in today's video I want to go over the main details and one of the bigger nerfs that you guys might notice depending on what drops from your Mythic Plus chest. Yes, another corruption got hit with yet another nerf, and this one was actually a crowd favorite, and the nerf it's getting is going to suck if you like using it in Mythic Plus dungeons. Anyway, let's get into the actual update. Blizzard made a couple changes recently. One of them was a change with Prophet Skitro boss in Neolotha. Another was an actual viable nerf for Mythic Raden, which I think a lot of guilds are going to have an easier time with this boss now. And even more adjustments for N'Zoth the Corruptor, as it looks like Blizzard is going to be slowly starting to apply nerfs for all these bosses as more people nab their mythic kills. I'm sure we'll have a lot more heavy nerfs for a variety of these bosses once we have top 100 Alliance and Horde guilds getting the Hall of Fame achievement. As this being the last patch of Battle for Azeroth, there's no point of gatekeeping people from being able to kill those bosses on Mythic. Yes, these fights are still going to be difficult, and Blizzard isn't going to reduce them to be almost heroic level, but certain mechanics that make it really difficult or mechanically challenging are going to be given a little bit more slack. Either way, this should be exciting for anybody who is looking to get the first cutting edge. Neolotha and N'Zoth could have one of the biggest nerfs, but I guess only time will tell. Blizzard also adjusted the currency for Coalescing Visions by removing the limit, and they even changed one of the assault rewards to actually give you just a load of Coalescing Visions instead of a vessel and visions. Which means if you want to get a vessel, you should go and buy one yourself. However, Blizzard doesn't want to clog up your bags, so instead of giving you a vessel, they're giving you the currency so that you can go buy a vessel if you choose to do it, or don't buy a vessel if you want to keep your bags free. There was also a bug they corrected with Formless Void and rogues being knocked out of stealth. It also changed an Azeroth trait and its interaction with arenas, and added a portal when you do the Veil of Eternal Blossom Assault, which is probably one of the best changes they've added recently. Also, if you were a fan of using corruptions inside of time walkings and doing absurd amounts of damage, Blizzard is now going to be nerfing it even further with time walking. I don't know why. The fun police was there all for it, and I guess maybe Blizzard wants to continue balancing the scaling technology of time walking, as maybe that's exactly what they'll be implementing for some of our level squishes in the future. So maybe that's why they're trying to take the system seriously, as it's something they really do want to continue working on. But if you want to use time walking and crazy corruptions and try to take advantage of this system, you'll no longer be able to have the fun, absurd damage that people were able to do inside of time walking dungeons. Now for the big update, there's a corruption that a lot of people love, and it's called Twilight Devastation. It basically has a small chance to send out a massive beam of void to just start kind of snaking in front of you, blasting every enemy and doing absurd amounts of damage. You can use this in PvP and it does quite okay damage. You can use it as a boss and it can do decent damage here and there, but where this corruption is at is fighting multiple enemies. And especially in Mythic Plus dungeons, if you can group up a bunch of enemies together and have a bunch of Twilight Devastations go off, oh, can you get some great numbers out of it. Tanks and even healers started using the Twilight Devastation to get some extra value DPS inside of Mythic Plus dungeons. It is a silly corruption that is really good in AoE content, and most people didn't mind. Actually, most people were pretty happy to get Twilight Devastation, especially ever since Echo and Void got a pretty hefty nerf. This is the last corruption that we have that plays off of our percentage health damage, and it's super convenient and super good in majority of situations. However, Blizzard decided to give this one a nerf. And I would say this is more of a fair nerf. It's not like a real curb to the actual corruption, but it does try to limit its capabilities. Twilight Devastation will now still deal normal damage for up to 5 targets. Where this was an issue in is in massive AoE trash packs. Now it will deal 50% reduced damage to targets 6 through 10. And the actual beam itself will keep shrinking until it hits the 10th target. On 10th target, it simply disappears. This corruption was insanely good as an idea to bring into keys, to get through trash packs a lot easier and even allow healers and tanks to participate in the damage output. And while it's silly, it was very effective. But with this nerf, you are still going to have the effectiveness to this corruption. especially if you pull on lower packs. But let's say it is a tyrannical week on a Mythic Plus week, and this is the best corruption you have in your repertoire. The bosses are going to have a lot more health and do a lot more damage, but the trash packs are going to be a little bit squishier since it is not a fortified week. That means you can pull far more enemies and get through them much faster with Twilight Devastation, allowing a team more time on bosses and even opportunity for more mistakes on those bosses. It may be 1 or 2 retries if you ever are struggling at a really high key. So Twilight Devastation allowed people to pull absurd amounts of packs and decimate them very, very quickly, and it gave that sort of strategy choice if you were to run Twilight Devastation. But the luck of having everybody in your group that's doing Mythic Plus dungeons, all with the highest ranks of Twilight Devastation, was very unlucky, unless you were to do it on MDI servers. And this is why the Blizzard is making this change. You see, on MDI, you can actually buy corruptions, like an enchant, and put them on specific pieces of gear, customize your gear to whatever you like, figure out the perfect number of corruption you have, while all of us, the rest of the people, have to get corruptions in RNG methods, and it's RNG how much of corruption to the value of the damage that you are getting. So on MDI servers, you really could have some groups with some crazy proper perfect setup with massive Twilight Devastation in order to just obliterate through trash packs. So what is the easiest fix in the situation? For a company that right now should be working mostly on Shadowlands rather than Battle for Azeroth, instead of going and fixing some of the basic things or adjusting classes, the easiest choice right now is to just simply curb Twilight Devastation, not nerfing the actual effect, but nerfing the kind of abusable areas. So Twilight Devastation having a limit on how many enemies it hits and the damage drop off heavily discourages the playstyle of people stacking a bunch of TD and pulling in a mass amount of enemies. If you're pulling 5 to 6 enemies, which would happen pretty often in a normal Mythic Plus situation, then you will still get the full value of the damage. However, when you're pulling like 20 or 30 mobs at a time and let's say kiting them around with some kind of cheesy strat that can sometimes be used in MDI setting, then Twilight Devastation is going to have a pretty massive drop off. I guess this is a good way to try to account for the corruption to make sure it's not really blowing things out of proportion. I'm pretty sure they want for people to have a variety of things to use in the MDI, but if you're someone who is getting a Twilight Devastation this morning in your lockbox, then I think this is going to be a little bit of kind of a weird feeling that you now got a corruption that's now has been nerfed. But you guys let me know what are your thoughts on the corruption nerf. Finally, Classic World of Warcraft in China now has the WoW token, which is a little bit weird for me to say this out loud because I remember the hashtag No Changes community vying so hard for vanilla WoW to be perfect and exactly as it was back in the day. But I guess in the China region, that's not really a thing. The hashtag No Changes, I guess, is a more European and NA type of deal in terms of region lock. But in China, yeah, apparently, I guess WoW token is going to be a thing. I wonder if that will ever come to the NA and EU servers of Classic, which I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But could it eventually? Oh, I like that kind of topic to chat about. But I won't talk about it for too long. The whole idea of adding a token to WoW is, if you know that people are still going to buy gold with real life money, you might as well provide them the opportunity from the actual vendor themselves, from the actual game company. First of all, it's less competition for them, but second of all, it's a safer way to do it instead of, have an opportunity to get scammed by another person. The gold economy, though, is going to be quite weird because now you're adding these tokens and it's going to inflate the gold pretty heavily, and that's going to have massive ramifications in terms of what Classic was about. So this is actually quite a big change, but I do wonder how popular would this be, or how profitable could this essentially be if this were to be added in WoW Classic? If, let's say, you had WoW Classic in a Petri dish, like the current WoW Classic we have right now, and you added the token and the community wasn't adamantly against it, maybe you had the retail community more or less like, half and half. Some people like it, some people don't, but no one absolutely despises it. I wonder if you had it in a Petri dish, how would it work out? Would it be something that's actually profitable for Blizzard, where it's like, well, I think we'll actually make more money implementing this? Or is this something that wouldn't really fly because of the way that WoW Classic was, like the drive to farm mats and farm gold and how difficult that was? Would that overpower, and would people want that more than the ease of access that can be applied with a gold token? I wonder how that would work out in an unrealistic situation. Although in real world, I don't think this would ever fly. I feel like the people that fought for the WoW Classic would be very adamantly against it. No chance of it happening here. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about all the things we talked about here, and I'll see all of you in the next one.